If you want to be the best, you have to learn from the best. If you want to be part of the top 20, you got to learn from the top 20. And that's exactly what we have for you today. We have featured recently our top 10 salon Instagram accounts across North America. And we have one of the owners with us today to talk about their strategy, how they've been able to elevate their Instagram game from a salon standpoint. And we're going to share all the ins and outs of it with you in today's episode. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Salon Scoop. We're happy to have you along with us today for another episode. Today, we're going to get the scoop on some best practices around a salon page when it comes to your social media, how to manage the salon page from the business standpoint. Now, you might be a business of one, you might be a business of five, you might be a multi-chain, multi-location operation. And in today's episode, you're going to learn tips and strategies that are going to help you with whichever situation you fall into. I have the great pleasure of having Wray with us, co-owner, COO of Head Candy Salons in the Calgary area. Wray, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So great to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun sort of delving into some of the, specifically Instagram is where we're going to spend most of our time, but the strategies, techniques that you as a company have been able to essentially display and benefit from and help your business grow. I encourage everybody who's listening to follow along with a bit of a show and tell approach. We love to do this when we're actually referencing a very specific, account on Instagram. So if you're not driving while listening to this, and not working out of the gym or occupying your hands, I encourage you to quickly follow along on Instagram. You can follow us as always at salon.s.o.s. But also follow Head Candy Salon. So that's at HEDKANDI Salon altogether. And you'll be able to see what we're actually referencing here as we go with some of the best practices and tactics. Now, Wray, we have a tradition of asking all of our guests an S.O.S. signature question before we officially get into it. But I want to keep it on topic with Instagram. So could you maybe start us off with just like one simple hot tip that you would suggest for all Instagram accounts out there?
It's hard to choose just one, but I would say don't forget the bio. Don't forget the bio. Everybody it is your elevator pitch for your business or your salon, and you need to really pay attention to that bio.
Love that. It's really the first impression. And often we set up our bio when we first create our Instagram account, and then we never look at it again. So it's definitely a tip would be not only to remember it, but to go back and refresh it, do a bit of an audit, right, to check that. And it's funny you mentioned that. If anybody is interested, we do have a free PDF guide that's how to do an Instagram bio audit and refresh. If you're interested, shoot us a quick DM on Instagram, send us an email, and we'll send it off to you. It's a 3-page PDF guide that kind of gives you the step-by-steps as to what you should be looking at to kind of refresh that. All right, great starter tip. I love that. We're going to have some fun talking about digital strategies to grow your business. But first, Wray, can you share with us your origin story? Love to just kind of find out how long you've been in the industry, how you got into the industry, and how Head Candy kind of started out and your role within the company, how it has shifted over time.
Sure. For myself, I came into our business about 15 years ago, and my husband is the founder and education director of our company. It was started in 1999. We've grown from one standalone salon to three brands, seven locations, and an e-commerce store. Um, I came from an automotive marketing and international management background. So it kind of is a nice tie-in with my husband's, hair background. So together we sort of work in tandem with working on the business and the creative side together. And we have a really wonderful director of operations who kind of levels out the two of us. So we make a great three-person team.
Sounds like a powerful force when you can bring in those different backgrounds and expertise, which truthfully a lot of our listeners do not have that, right? They're going to be in a smaller style business where they might be either the sole proprietor, managing a
Mhm.
business, or they may have a partner, but they may both have a hair cosmetology background. So we're definitely going to be cognizant of that as we go through this. But let's let's first talk about what your company Head Candy did to build out its Instagram account. Um, how did you build up the followers and engagement on the account? Since Instagram, I guess, since you first became serious about Instagram.
Mhm. Well, one of the things that we were really very passionate about was not purchasing followers. Since we, have been in the business a really long time, a lot of our other people in the industry we've saw, and it's no judgment against anyone who has. It just wasn't for us. What we discovered is there's no upside to a brick and mortar business to purchase followers. It really, the Instagram is meant to be a return on your investment. It's to share what we're doing in our space. And if the people that are following don't have any engagement, they're not tied to it, it's not helping us in any way. So we were very conscious about choosing only organic followers. And then the other piece for us is making sure that what we're putting out is a reflection of the people that are inside of the space, because we want more like-minded individuals. We want more people who, understand our brand values and the type of clientele that we're looking for and what those avatars are, and then really catering our content to those people.
I like that. So has that kind of been a steady growth strategy then over time, which has
Mhm.
led you to sort of where you are today? I think 10 to 11,000
Yeah,
followers.
very, very much so. We noticed, we kind of got stuck for a long time between that 5 and 8,000 mark. It was up and down for years and years. And we just held to that line of really not wanting to, purchase to get to that invisible sort of achievable 10,000 mark. But with curated content as well as those community sort of partnerships and alignments that really helped just continue to slowly build over time. And then when you hit that 9,000 mark, we really made a real push with our internal clientele, our internal team saying, okay, now let's really go for this number.
Yeah, yeah. But it's important, that people don't get caught up in the vanity metrics, and because too
No.
often people just evaluate the success of an Instagram account based on how many followers they have, and that's absolutely the wrong way to go about looking
Hmm.
at it. You know, you want to look at your business,
Hmm.
the size of your business, and you don't need thousands and thousands of followers.
No.
Think about how many clients do you actually need, right, to fill the space that you have in your salon company. And typically, for one, a one seat, let's say, you're going to
Hmm.
have maybe 100 to 150 clients, per, let's say, stylist or per service provider. So you don't necessarily need more than several hundred or a couple thousand followers if they are the right followers. And that sounds like that's what you've been really dedicating
Exactly.
yourselves to, understanding who your when you mentioned the word avatar. I assume
Mhm.
you're talking about your ideal clientele for your
Yes.
salon company, and then developing the content with those people in mind, as opposed to just posting content that you think is good or that you like, or that's based on the salon's perspective. You're really putting it on the client's perspective and posting what's right for them. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Okay, let's talk about some basics for our listeners who maybe aren't able to look at your account while we're doing this. How often, typically, is there new content being posted on your Instagram account? Be it posts, reels, stories.
Hmm. Our stories we post daily, almost daily. Sometimes we miss a day, but it could be, repurposed content from our internal team. It can be our own. It could be a reminder of a promotion that's going on. It can be many different things. And that's happening every day. And then our reels, we're looking, 4 to 5 times a week at posting reels on the main page.
Nice. Do you post anything other than reels on the main page?
Yeah, sometimes we have just like standard posts as well. We'll oscillate between reels and posts. It really depends on is it a standalone photo or is it some kind of a story that we're trying to share? Not meaning a story as a story, but a story as a reel.
Right. Or as a carousel potentially, if it's like many static photos
Exactly.
together that you might want to put together.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a range, and it's certainly one of the reasons why we selected your company. We have been scouring Instagram for months and months, and we put together at the beginning of this year a feature. Anyone can go and check that out on our website. It was the top 10 salon Instagram pages to follow if you really want to look at what we identified as best practices when it came to utilizing all the features, from having a great bio, using the your Instagram highlights properly, having a really consistent yet diverse feed in terms of the actual content that's putting out there. Obviously, consistency in the stories. It's a really great follow. So I really highly encourage everybody to sort of check that out because it really does showcase a lot of the really best practices that you could be following and learning from yourself. Ray, does your salon company systematically post the same thing automatically on Facebook when you're producing something for Instagram?
Yeah, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat situation on Facebook for sure. I
Yeah.
would say the one opportunity that I was thinking about with Facebook is the neighborhood accounts for the neighborhood community groups. I think are the number one opportunity for like a standalone stylist, more so than a business, where I see so many, moms and women and even men, of course, asking for recommendations on who other people are using in their neighborhood. And as a business, it kind of looks a little self-satisfying to put something in there, but I'd love to, promote the stylist within the business. And I think that it just is a huge opportunity, but more from a stylist perspective than a business perspective.
Yeah, that's a great comment because Facebook has difference. A lot of people, and we do the same, and we kind of recommend that post for Instagram, and you can just automatically schedule it to Facebook for the content. But Facebook has all sorts of other features like groups, as you mentioned, that are very active, and
Yeah.
people are looking to share information. And if you become active in those groups, an active participant, not a once in a while throw in something that's a salesy thing, but that helps you build connections within the community, which is so critical for people to trust you. And that's what they're out there for. And it's a great way to build referrals, which does not exist on Instagram. So that's where understanding the differences in some of the platforms and utilizing them can help. Does Head Candy have a TikTok account?
We have a TikTok account, but it's a secondary sort of minor player in the game right now. We go back and forth about whether we should really ramp it up, not ramp it up. I mean, Instagram for sure is our main focus, the one where we put all of our efforts,
Yeah.
but we do have one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you probably take some of the reels that you're kind of more producing for Instagram and put them onto TikTok. Would that be fair?
Yes, and some of like the B content stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's more, I feel like TikTok is more like a silly, fun, sort of behind the scenes place, whereas
Yeah.
Instagram is like, your forward facing brand magazine, I almost call it.
Totally. Yeah. And again, that is a difference. It's good to understand the differences in the platform. People who are watching TikTok, following TikTok, are looking for different things typically than they are on Instagram. So I think you've got it
Yes.
right dead on there. TikTok is a little bit more fun, social videos, as opposed to Instagram, where you can be a little bit more polished, a little bit more educational from that standpoint. Who, Ray, you mentioned you have 3 businesses, 7 locations. So obviously there's a lot going on because you have different brands to manage and then multiple locations. You have a team, as you've referenced. Who's actually managing your social media, and how has that evolved over time?
Good question. We currently have a freelance partnership. So we've got a company that's helping us. We come together once a week. We have a weekly 1 hour meeting. We talk about all of the internal, external things that are happening in the salon space, and as well as in the community events. And we talk about what that calendar looks like so that the social is, of course, a representation of those ideas. We try to be as aligned as possible, and then that company will go ahead and build out, our social content, and we'll sort of leave it pretty loose so that there's places for us to add or change things up if we need to. We have a very loose set of, a loose schedule. However, we really adhere to our content pillars. So talking community, team, stylists, the locations, the education, and the events that we're doing, and everything really falls within those pillars.
Nice.
Now,
Actually,
we did used to have an internal coordinator, but after COVID happened, we just restructured a little bit. And I think we'd be good with either if we found the right person. But right now, we have a really good partnership with this company.
that's fantastic. I mean, you do need to find the right person for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And too often, what we see in our industry is that either the salon owner feels like they are have to be, not that they necessarily are, but they have to try to be, Superwoman or Superman, and just
Mm-hmm.
do everything themselves, which is completely unsustainable. And when you don't have the expertise behind something, then you're not going to be able to, execute it at the level that it should. So you need to find the right person. And sometimes that can be internal, which is great. We always say that ideally, if you can find someone internal who's able to capture, the essence of what's going on the day-to-day basis, you need somebody who can, record videos that's are, happening in the salon, to be able to share that. So, but having the right resources is definitely important, regardless of whether you're internal or external. And I would encourage everybody to think about that, making sure that you're finding the right person. I'm curious to know, you talked about the pillars and you're sticking to the pillars. I love that. We're very much about strategy. Obviously, let's talk a little bit more about your why, your purpose, right? What's the purpose behind your Instagram account today? What are you trying
I
to
mean,
achieve with it?
our main Instagram account is meant to give a brand representation, like I said, a brand magazine to our community. And that's not meaning existing community. It's like anyone who's even considering being part of our community. We want to share with them what it feels like to be part of Head Candy, what the experience will feel like, what these service providers feel like before you even walk in the door. So trying to give them the essence of the values that we have and through those core pillars, because that's really what we're doing. That's what we stand for. And we want everyone who's even, a friend or adjacent or in Calgary to be able to understand what our purpose is, which is, elevating the salon community, giving consistent and memorable guest experience every single time, and doing it like we always say, we're the fun side of luxury.
Nice. And that kind of gives you a bit of a unique positioning. I love
Yes.
that. I want everybody, if you didn't capture that last sort of 30 to 45 seconds of what Ray said, I want you to pause. I want you to rewind and go back and listen to that, because I think it'll provide you with so much insight into how you can create your own purpose, right? An actual strategy behind your Instagram account. It's not just posting for the sake of posting. You need to have a purpose, and you need to identify what that is for your company, but how you actually are representing yourself and connecting your values with the community. It was so well said. Can you share with us, Ray, some examples of content? You talked about the pillars that you
Mm-hmm.
follow. What are some examples of concrete content that represents those pillars that you find work particularly well to showcase your brand?
Yeah, great question or great idea. When we have new team members go on the floor, we love to highlight those team members. It's one of our most engaged posts. We will do sort of an internal contest for people. They can win a haircut with that new talent, and it just shares the, it shares that we're building people. It shares our associate program is working. It's sharing with the community that we have this new team member. And of course, it's really welcoming the team member to the styling floor. So it is a triple win for us in our Instagram, and they do that reach is one of the top posts that we have. So we continue to do that year after year after year, and just make sure that everybody is seeing those fresh faces.
Love that. Are there any other types of posts that you find typically get the most engagement?
The community engagement posts are the number one. Anytime we do a fashion show, a social event, a brand partnership, anything like that. Those are the top posts for sure. I think it's the collaboration of like-minded partnerships in the community. You are targeting both your list, you're targeting their list, and people are seeing, oh, I go here. Okay, I have a natural inclination now to look at this brand because they seem aligned.
I love that. And you actually mentioned that as part of your follower growth strategy at the beginning by
Mm-hmm.
collaborating with community. So I'd like to come back to that a little bit to maybe give some more concrete ideas to salons out there that have maybe not thought about this. How do you create collaborations with other community companies or events that are actually helping you to grow your presence on social media? Could you walk us through a little bit of maybe detail around what that looks like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The number one thing that I've learned in these partnerships is that if we have a lot of overlapping followers, that is where the magic is. So we get people asking us, could I be an influencer? Or I think there's a brand alignment here. And we'll go on through, the business account and look at their business account and just see how many mutual followers there are. And if it's a high number, then we know that that will be a successful partnership, and we will put together a lot of, we'll promote them, they will promote us, we'll do a tie back piece. And sometimes it's not even about any kind of offering. It's just, we've had a staff event at a local boutique where we did a team building session at that boutique, and then we posted about it. And now our guests know that we're aligned with that boutique. So it can just be very organic in that way. It doesn't have to be a discount. It doesn't have to be any kind of actual promotion, but it's just brand awareness sometimes.
And just connecting. I mean, we talk all the time. One of the
Yes.
best ways to grow the right following is it's time consuming, but the secret sauce is identify other businesses in your geographical area that have the same clientele that you want to have in your business.
Yes.
Go onto their account, their Instagram account for that business, and look at who those followers are. And you could actually go and start, follow those people, like their
Yes.
content, comment on their content, and they're going to be like, oh, what's this head candy or whatever account you're using, that's just followed me, that's liking my content, that's commenting. They're instantly going to click on your profile and go and at least check you out. And if they see that you have a similar positioning to this other company that they're following, there's a much greater likelihood that they're going to be interested in your content as well. So it's the number one strategy that we usually recommend. It's very, very grassroots. It's time consuming, but it is super effective.
I think it's really important to also note, like, spend the money, go to their place, experience what that's like as a guest, because we support places that we love to shop. We support places we love to get services done. And I think if you haven't had that, I wouldn't put my brand behind it. You want to make sure that the guest in that space is receiving the same type of service that you receive in your salon. And it's all about supporting local. Like, I'm not going into one of those places and saying, can I have a deal? It's, I want to support you because you're doing the same thing that we're doing, and we want to really lift each other up.
And those are the really, really strong lasting partnerships anyways, right? When it's based on that.
Exactly. That's
Love
right.
that.
And our team has brought a ton of opportunity to us in that respect. Like the team knows who they like to do business with, and naturally you're going to get a lot of like-minded overlap on your clientele. So really leverage, the relationships that your stylists have in the salon as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's so well said. Tap into, your staff. They're connected. They know
Yes.
what's trending. Where the hot spots are, and they have connections and relationships in the community as well that you can tap into. Ray, one thing I love about the Head Candy page is the variety of content that you have. And I think that's a really important best practice out there. So you're not just posting, the same thing over and over again, a hair transformation, picture of hair, whatever the case may be. You talked about the pillars that you have. How do you go about creating your sort of posting schedule as to like how to make sure that you have a mix happening and how frequently you post certain things? Is that is that set up that where you've said, what, we're going to do one post a week like this and one post like this? Is it just random? How do you actually create that calendar?
I would say we start with what's happening in the location. We know we have on Mondays, we have these education events happening. So we'll have some content that comes from that. We know we have this community event happening. So we sort of put in all the things that we know, that the holidays that people want to celebrate, the promotions in the salon, and we'll map that out first. And then we'll look at what's missing or what have we been working on that we haven't posted yet. And we sort of just trickle in the rest. I think the most important thing is just like, I mean, honestly, you could get two dice and one of them could be the type of post and one of them could be a pillar, and you can just roll two dice together and that's what you're going to post. I think it's just a variety, like you said, where if I haven't posted an education piece for a long time, a tutorial or even just some back end education that we have, people are going to want to see that. They're going to be craving that. I think the biggest thing that I could say around the content is as much as we want to see beautiful hair pictures and before and after transformations, people are bored by that. It doesn't show anything about the salon. It doesn't show anything about the stylist. It doesn't even really show anything about the guest. So there's a lot of beautiful hair, but what is the point of difference that sets you apart? What's the piece that your guest is getting? Why would I come to your salon versus another salon? And that's where all of that other stuff comes in.
Yeah, and that's why what you said earlier about the values and how you incorporate that is so critical, because that's your point of differentiation and that's what's actually going to create a connection with your audience. People are on social media because they want connection. It's called social media for a reason,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to humanize your business. It's tougher as a business. We're not just friends
Mm-hmm.
posting about what we did on Saturday night, which is what a lot of social media is about. As a business, it is trickier. So you have to find ways to humanize your business and just showcase how you are connected, right, to the community, connected to the people, and yeah, highlighting the people component, the staff, as you've mentioned. Really love that what you're doing. I want to talk for a minute here about aesthetic while we're at it. How important is the aesthetic in your posts and keeping some level of consistency? You'll call it branding, and how much time is actually spent on
Yeah.
ensuring that that look is consistent, or is that no longer important and relevant?
It's so important and it's so hard to do now because you can't just, there's no hook, right? There's no hook without the word across the screen. And we hate the words on the pictures, but we understand that like people want to get hooked in right away to your photo or your post or your carousel or whatever. And obviously the quickest way to do that is with that quick tagline on the front, but it's so against our brand aesthetic. And so we are constantly battling how to maintain the look that we want while also giving the viewer what they crave. And it is a constant back and forth, even this is a trending sound. Yep, but it's off brand. Or this is, a trending way to post. Okay, but that's off brand. And so we're navigating this Instagram algorithm and our social media team and their ideas going, we love what you're trying to do, but could we do it in a more head candy way? And so it is a bit of a battle for sure.
And what would your recommendation be for salons out there that maybe are having that same struggle. They're like, oh, I'm told I'm supposed to, do all the trending stuff, and but at the same time, like I want to stick true to like my perfect branding um,
Yeah.
and curate it. What would your advice be to somebody out there who's kind of almost like
Oh,
paralyzed by it?
I think it's compromise. You have to stick to your brand colors, stick to your brand font, stick to your brand music, and compromise within the algorithm, compromise what people want to see. So, if we're going to put a hook on there, it's going to be our branding, it's going to be our colors, it's going to be our font. It's not going to be this big red click here button. But at the end of the day, we've got to be able to also engage with our guests, and what people are looking for changes. And I mean, there's this huge shift right now from that clean girl aesthetic to this maximalist that brands are coming out with. So neither of those are our brand. So it'll be interesting how we, navigate that change. But there's always something that we can do that allows us to work within that context, but it is a compromise. And what we found is that there's almost always a solution. And then if it's really bad, you can just delete that post later anyways.
Yeah, and I
Archive
mean,
it. Don't delete it. Archive it.
yeah, for the algorithm, they don't like deleting
There's
posts.
there is some, we put out a big promotion and we want it to be very visible and we want to promote it on Instagram, but then we want to take it off the feed later. And we've done that before. So
Yeah, and
compromise.
the other thing is, I mean, I like to tell salon professionals all the time, don't put too much thought and worry into this. At the end of the day, once you have 12 more posts, it kind of, pushes its way
Exactly.
down the feed, and most people are
Yep.
not even going to look at it and see it and care anyway. So it's really not as big of a deal as sometimes we make it out to be in our heads. So what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes that a salon professional can make with Instagram and maybe social media in general, in your opinion? What's the biggest mistake out there that people should be cognizant of?
I think not allowing people to see who they are. It's making everything about the work, making everything about the hair. We go back to this all the time. I know some of the schools are saying like don't put yourself out there. And just put your work out there. And one of the things that our hiring team is always looking at is like, who are you as an individual? Because if I'm showing up and I'm going to let you, touch me, because we are in a very close business, I want to know who you are. I want to know something about you. And so the work is important. I want to see that you have, the technical side, but really love to know like, who am I connecting with, like you said.
Love it. It's fantastic. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because at the end of the day, it is a human business. I'm
That's
very
right.
curious to know a little bit more about what you look at as KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. I would expect that a bigger business, with more locations, uh, that you're more sort of like data focused in general. I might be wrong, but how do you go about measuring the success of your Instagram page? What does your salon look at and focus on to determine if things are working or not for you?
We like you said earlier, it's less about what kind of followers are we getting, and it's more about the reach. Are we reaching accounts that we've never seen before? That is the number one thing that we look at is non-followers. And am I getting the opportunity to show our brand in front of someone who maybe hasn't seen us before or doesn't follow us yet? Because I know that that is the first step before they look at the web, before they book an appointment, before they come into the salon. And then, another big, to your earlier question, another big mistake is like your posts don't actually reflect the experience in the space. Because once someone comes in from Instagram, if we can get them looped through that whole thing and then they come in and it doesn't reflect what they saw online, they're out. The trust is gone. So I think it's the reach of the non-followers, the number one thing.
So how do you influence that? How do you change that? If you're checking because you can check your insights right through the Instagram dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
and if you see that you are not reaching, a high enough percentage that you want of non-followers, what do you do to correct that?
I think it'll be based on going back to those pillars. We know in our business that certain pillars that we have will have a further reach on non-followers, and we can see them. We can see these kinds of posts will do that. And I think it'll really depend on the viewer's audience, because what will happen in our salon will be different depending on what kind of, avatar or ideal client that you have. Some of them are going to want to see those education posts, and those will get shared and they'll get pushed out. And then other ones will be that silly sort of like back room, almost TikTok-esque kind of posts that we do on Instagram. So I think it really depends on your clientele, but really understanding where the pillars are in your business and what those types of posts do. And that's what we really look at.
Nice. And that's all available to everybody in your Instagram insights on your dashboard. You can go and look at all your past content, and you can see not just your reach, not just the engagement, but you can see, what percentage of that reach is existing followers versus non-followers. And just from your historical posts, you can learn from that and see, oh, these types of posts tend to get put in front of more non-followers. And then you can start, kind of repeating that similar style or similar type of post if that's what you want to go after. Wray, I want to come back. You've used the word avatars, on many occasions. How many different avatars, sort of client personas, do you have for your businesses?
Depends on the brand. We have one head candy brand, but 3 locations, and we have 3 separate avatars, the most likely client for each of those locations. In our beauty parlor at Butter, we have 2 different kinds, and same with our Johnny's Barbershop, 2 different kinds. So it really depends. And I think if you ask your team, they have a really good idea of like, you know, who is the client that you see the most of.
Love it. And do you ever have, because you have 3 locations for head candy specifically, which I guess is what we're relating to in the Instagram account that we're
Mm-hmm.
speaking about today. You said you have 3 different avatars, one for each location, but you have one Instagram page. So within that page, you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of trying to post content that could speak to one of those 3 avatars or more in every single post. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that you can hit all 3 in every single post. I would say each of those avatars have something that they're looking for, and that comes back to the variety of the posts. And it comes back to, the values of the brand, because all 3 of them have that in common.
And how can you give us a salon professional out there, uh, give them some advice. How should they go about creating an avatar? What does that actually look like? What kind of like the specifications do you actually have built
Yep.
out for an avatar?
I think it's figuring out who the different types of clientele that you have and doing it as a group exercise. So here's the reason that some people come, whether it's they love the craft of the hair. They're coming because they love how the hair gets done. They're very focused on the hair. Or some of them are coming because they're very brand driven. They love the brand and the things that it stands for. There's many different reasons that people come to your salon, and it's figuring out what those are, and then can you narrow it down to like the majority of the people that we see are, in this age group, they're of this, area of the city, they are in this socioeconomic area. Like figure out really deeply who your target market is so that you can then, cater to that.
Love it. It's really got to come down to those interests, those behaviors. Too often, when we
Mm-hmm.
talk to salons, they're like, oh, you know what, like, yeah, our ideal client is, any woman in her 20s, 30s, or 40s, and
Yeah.
they kind of stop there. It's like gender and age, and they don't go much further. So you really want to delve into, who that person is, where they live, where they shop, what they like, as you just referenced. Really, really important to kind of go to that level of depth.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's not always gendered either. So we are a gender neutral salon. So that's one of the things that we don't always look at, but it can be part of it depending on their habits and interests. Absolutely.
Yeah, love that. What are your sort of most effective strategies on Instagram for both gaining new clients And also, let's not forget about trying to use it as a recruiting tool to maybe gain new stylists.
Mm, yeah, great question. Um, the community engagement posts are the number one way we build new clients. When we do an event or a show or anything in the city, we try to do as many hair events, hair shows, anything that we can around hair, but we do, donations at places and things like that. Those ones are always the ones that we gain the most new followers from because it's a like-minded brand with a like-minded brand, and they just sort of, pop up. The recruiting for service providers, we actually started another Instagram. We didn't start an Instagram. We converted an Instagram. So Jeremy's personal Instagram became all of the things he wanted to post that didn't look good on the main feed that he was getting blocked on, as far as, all of the education that we do in the space and really speaking to the salon professional. So how to, interview well, how to find a great salon to work at, how to be very discerning around the salons that you want to be aligned with, and really understanding like his founder story and sharing it there. And it became a bit of, in COVID, we had to suspend our associate program. And so we were trying to figure out how can we speak to the salon professional and also not alienate our clients because they don't want to hear about that stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
we just created those two tracks. And it's been very successful being able to reach the salon professional and engage with them in a really different way. And it's allowed us to have sort of two things happening. Now, I recognize the idea of two Instagrams is very overwhelming to somebody, absolutely, for sure. But I think, depending on your salon setup, you could do it as one. But it's what am I getting when I reach out to Head Candy? What are the benefits and what are the support systems that we have set up for that salon professional? And why would you want to be part of that?
Love that. Well shared. It's a great, it's a great idea. And as you said, it can seem overwhelming. And for some, they might be like, "Oh my gosh, like, you're asking me to create a second account." Sometimes though, it's just through, you might be using your personal account and you can shift it the same way that you said Jeremy has done. It doesn't have to be creating something from scratch all over again. The other angle is, there are lots of salon professionals out there who are educators, and we have interviewed many of them on our show here at the Salon Scoop, and we talk about that, the dichotomy, because they also work behind the chair trying to gain clients, but they are also educating and they have a stylist audience as well. So you can listen to some of those episodes if you're out there trying to figure out how to manage two different audiences, for some great sort of tips and advice that might be able to help you. All right, Ray, I'm going to piggyback on this last thought and to kind of close out our interview here today with a final question, because the truth is that many salon owners and salon professionals out there not only don't really enjoy social media, but they don't have a lot of time and they find it frustrating, time consuming. They see it as a necessary evil, something that they have to do
Mm-hmm.
without wanting to do it. What advice would you have for these salon owners and salon professionals that are in that situation who don't really enjoy it and are currently putting in the minimal amount of effort?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should be doing it. I think they need to find someone who can. I think you have to either trade hair or anything. If you can afford it, that's great. But like, why are you pushing water uphill? Go and find someone who loves social media because there's so many people out there. They might even be working with you and for you, but go and find a company, an individual, internal, external, something. Just take yourself out of that role because there's so many other things that you have to do as a business owner that you actually will have so much more ROI on because you can do it easier, you can do it faster than anyone else, and put yourself in the right lane. Like, don't be the roadblock in your own company because everyone needs social media. So you have to find a way that you can get the very best representation of your brand out there and people can feel that I have to energy. You don't want that being portrayed.
That is so well said. I love that. I want to go and clip that piece and say it over and over again. That was fantastic. Really, really amazing advice from a top salon company out there, everyone. We really, like I said, have scoured, Instagram and really identified the top. And we want to make sure that you're able to learn from the best of the best out there. And we really believe that Head Candy is an amazing example. So follow along online. Once again, it's at Head Candy Salon. That's HEDKANDI Salon. We're going to have it linked in the show notes here for you to be able to track that. It's just a great way to follow along and learn, see what they're doing, and see how you can implement that in your own business going forward. So Wray, thank you so much for being here and sharing all this. It was great to get the scoop on your experiences and your best practices and advice for all industry professionals out there. I know everyone's learned a lot, and we really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Scott.
Great. Everyone out there listening, you absolutely know somebody who could use the advice that we shared today. Maybe you're a salon owner yourself. Maybe you're a colleague. Maybe you are a staff member and you want to share this with your owner. You want to share this with a friend who's in the business. Do them a favor, share this episode. There's so many golden nuggets. We're trying to change the industry one professional at a time, and we can all help do that. That's the only way that we can help more people in this industry do better. We all do better when we all do better. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional and rate the show on Spotify or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.